So if you're trying to know if a photo is Joseph Smith or not, I think it is imperative to know some things about the 8 doctors that think the skulls were misidentified and switched. So one of the very first studies was done by Community of Christ, but they paid Jane Buksha and Catherine Schiak. I don't know how to say their names, but they're PhDs. And so they're bioarchaeologists. And so they looked at the skulls before In Search of Joseph came out in 1995, but it was the early 1990s that they looked and thought that they saw arthritis of the left hip, and they stated that the skeleton on the right in the image shows evidence compatible with the surgery. Sequela discussed in various documents, including diaries and published accounts for Joseph Smith's early experience with typhoid, osteomyelitis, and of course, Curtis Weber wants you all to think and has convinced you all that the only reason they thought they were switched was just because of the non-broken bone over the area where Hyrum Smith has a bullet hole in his death mess, but it's intact. That is only one of many statements the 8 doctors stated. He didn't even name Jane, didn't even name Catherine. And I did not know about the names of Dr. Niles Harrod and Dr. Van de Graaff. They weren't noted by Curtis Weber in his 2009 paper. So that's, I don't think I did a scathing review of him, but I was a little mad that I didn't know about any of this. The whole internet seemed to not know about In Search of Joseph, but this, I didn't know about this. I didn't know their names. I didn't know what they said, because Locke Mackay did not publish this slideshow, and this is with the Community of Christ Community of Christ Historic Sites Foundation, December 1st, 2023 interview with him. And so you see about 22 minutes in where I timestamped it. This is the skull on the right. And so you see that's an intact skull. This is a skull missing all the facial bones. And then you see, if you scroll up here, we got Dr. Niles Harrod, and he's talking about RLDS Joseph. Because Emma's right there. It's missing all the facial bones. This has the marker saying this is Joseph Smith. So that's why they say RLDS Joseph. And this is RLDS Hyrum. However, he does state when he talks about the one buried as Hyrum has more of the facial bones and missing maxilla. And so this is a maxillofacial surgeon, Dr. Niles Harrod. And you can see his credentials here, oral and maxillofacial surgeon. He states that, essentially, I could just say he thinks RLDS Hyrum, the skull bones buried as Hyrum Smith, is Joseph's. But one interesting thing when we're looking at the paintings and the death mask and my photo that really stands out is a step deformity. At the left zygoma viewed at the infraorbital rim. And I think someone from the other side of the veil was screaming this at me. Again, I couldn't audibly hear this. I'm not crazy, you guys. But this was in 2016 that I first looked at a photo of the skull and then looked at the photo that I wasn't fully convinced of for another till 2017. Not a year, but, over 6 months. Because I thought the Spiritus picture I found online, and I found my picture online. I didn't own it. I did not own it, if you're new. But I kept looking at his right eye and thinking his orbital bone was busted. And maybe it was just someone screaming at me from the other side of the veil. People care. I think even on the other side of the veil. Do you understand that? Like, this is... Because so many people are praying about it. So God has made it a prayer to be answered. When there's that many people praying about what photo is Joseph Smith, he's going to answer it. Even though you've got people saying, oh, it doesn't affect my testimony and it doesn't matter what you, but so many people are praying for like the Joseph Papers team. All those people, I think, working on in 2017, especially, was when in our own church's bookstore, Deseret Book was going to sell and has been selling a painting of the Scannell Kid as Joseph Smith. They're selling a painting that looks exactly like the scandal kid, except that the chin was made larger. And he said, oh, it's just sort of a technique they did back then, and I just decided to do that. Because he knows the chin's too small. But the chin is way glaringly too different. It's just not the same with the Larsen daguerreotype. It's just shaped different. It's flat. But anyway, the step deformity and just seeing all these things. And so In Search of Joseph has the name of Shannon Tracy on it. But he worked and paid Zygote Media, who then hired on first Dr. Van de Graaff, who wrote books on anatomy. He's an anatomist from BYU. So it bothers me why I didn't enlarge his name or make it easier to find his quote. So I need to edit a lot of that and make it a lot shorter so people actually read it. Like my videos, I know you guys don't watch them all the way through. And I had a conversation with someone last summer, like, oh, I mean, I know what you're and telling me, schooling me and how I'm wrong on certain things, but I haven't really looked at your website. I'm like, I answer that on my website. I was kind of trying not to be annoyed, but I'm like, maybe you should actually read through it sometime. I didn't mean to be mean, but it was very clear they hadn't. But Dr. Van de Graaff wrote a book on anatomy, and then so the controversy is DJ Bodden, who, has to measure people's faces. And so photoanthropometry made sense to him. So he decided to use that to decide which skull is Joseph Smith. And then it was on that skull that he used and created his sculptures. So he's very, very passionate and extremely emotional. And according to, I won't say the name of someone that was around him once, very angry. Very, very angry that anyone disagreed with him. Because at this point, it was 4 doctors. And then you got Curtis 9 years later. Not 9 years. 14 years later. Quoting, DJ Bodden saying that they're ignoring the basics of anatomy. But this guy wrote a book on it, and I don't agree with that at all. I think they both are thinking they should be using photoanthropometry, but it's a flawed technique. Very, very, very flawed. So as you read what Dr. Van de Graaff is doing, it's a lot more made more sense, and it's a lot more similar to how I had already read our paper. And I didn't read this till 2022. It was 2021 that I finally read what they'd written about the paper about my photo. And there was a longer version, and it's hard for me to remember things that they said in these longer versions that were really, really good. But there, I remember there was sort of like a question in there, and this like answered certain things. And I'd sent this to the people I was working with, and it did change the paper in a good way, a little bit. But anyway, they were really, really like, wow, that's really good. And they saw like, this is an anatomist. This is someone who's basically, teaching anatomy. Machi's teaching anatomy, Anyway. But they've specialized in identifying people in photos. So they understand the various techniques people have created, and they've been put to the test and thrown out if they're not good. So photoanthropometry thrown out. Except to maybe you could maybe figure out someone's height. That would be really good, important to find a criminal. If there's a light post, you know how tall it is. Someone standing right next to it, you can get an approximate height. But even that's not going to be perfect height, So, Search of Joseph. Shannon Tracy gets Zygote Media. They worked with him. And then he sees that this skull has a broken maxilla. And he knows this guy, maxillofacial surgeon. And so those are people being quoted. And it is alleged, I won't say the name, by someone that these men were like, he quoted me wrong and I don't know. And I'm so upset. Like there would have been something public said, a public book. They would have publicly come out. Their career would have been on the line if something totally false was said that they allegedly said didn't happen. Right. So it seems I even reached out to like his grandson, and he didn't say anything like that. So It would have been his chance. This girl's YouTube channel. Maybe she could vindicate my grandfather. And my grandfather didn't say anything like that. He didn't support this man. There was a victim of Shannon Tracy. That didn't happen. And I don't know if anything negative or bad happened, but they concluded as well that this skull is Joseph's. And so the step deformity, and when I looked up step deformity in typing with one hand because I'm holding a microphone with the other. And I looked in Google Scholar and saw a specific image of one woman, but like you can sort of see like really the eyes are so different. The orbital bone is different. It just really can make one eye look lower than the other. It just really changes the face shape of someone. Changes a lot of things. So you can look through this. I think I needed to go. We can go to Google Scholar, but I won't do that right now. But there was one specific picture that looked like what you could see is happening here, where this left eye is lower than the right. Okay. And then there were 4 other just doctors, but these were the 4 best credentialed, then Joseph Lyons, and then 3 more doctors. It comes out to 8 doctors. People have actually taken a bunch of anatomy classes and understand bones a lot better than Curtis Weaver, who just really I still think he pulled the wool over everyone's eyes. It's sort of like, don't look over there, don't read that. They basically just state that there's a missing bone in the maxilla, and to the left of the nasal hole there. It's all intact, but there's a hole in Hyrum Smith's death mask, and I can explain that, and just I'm not going to name those women. I'm not going to name, Niles Harrod or Dr. Vandergraaf. It's all Tracy. So Tracy concluded, which is false. He paid Zygote Media, who paid Dr. Vandergraaf, who pulled on Dr. Niles, but that ends up being, it was like 4 people in Zygote Media, according to the photos in the book In Search of Joseph, and then you got 2 other men. That's a whole group of people that know what was said and decided. So if this person that's claiming that those men didn't really say that or were misquoted, that's 6 people other than Shannon Tracy, and he's just photographed in the back. They would have said something. But anyway, you can see on the death mask, it's just so clearly there. And so as I'm doing these shorts and trying to explain some major differences, but you're making a 60-second video. Step deformity looks like it was tried to be added. So basically this is a duplicate oil painting that was done by Victor Kress, and this was done by David Rogers. It's according to Locke Mackay and a lot of very prominent church historians. And there's so many reasons about that. And you can even go to Forward-Facing Painting Controversy, and you can read in here how Joseph Smith III, in 1910, he was born in 1832. He died in 1914. And so he lived 14 years into the 20th century. But as an older man, he saw this painting that he didn't like by Ramsey. He's like, you need to look at this duplicate oil painting in Iowa place there, and you can see that this is that painting. You can click the link there. Oh, something I need to edit. And you used to be able to click on that and go straight to the Iowa Historical Society. I need to work on my website today. I definitely do. That's very unfortunate. Let's open that in a new tab. Iowa Historical Society. So as you're reading about this, it's in, he states how it's in Iowa. And then I asked the community crisis, and they said it's Iowa Historical Society. And they allowed me to, I think I paid them, I can't remember, but I filled out, they said they allowed me to put this on my website. And so this is in its frame. You can really see. So I didn't edit this. This left eye is a lot lower than that right eye. Okay. So it was donated. Did they say the date? 1899 by Joseph Smith III himself. So this is that painting, okay, that he's talking about. Right here. It's like, this guy who painted this needs to see this. And he, goes into a lot of other things. And William B. McCarl is like, oh, well, there's a ring on the right hand. Joseph III's mad about it. There's a ring on the right hand in his own forward-facing painting. But interesting enough, in the duplicate, he's just cropped it out. I don't know, but Maudsley even painted Joseph Smith wearing a ring on the right hand. But anyway, so the step deformity is something that you definitely can see in the duplicate oil painting. But then you've got David Lindsley seeing and talking about this picture where the eyes are very, very level. And Kim Marshall's is the same, and so is the Library of Congress picture. They're all of the same painting. And even Kim's shows the canvas. It shows lines of you can see it. Hers per picture is not a photo of a man, and the sheer amount of things that are so off on it. But so I can show you a grid here and just kind of explain a few things. A little bit longer of a video again, but if you're a seeker of truth as I am, maybe you'll watch this and see what I figured out. But you can see how this is going straight through the pupils of his eyes. But when we look at this, you can see how much that eye is basically plopped down, dropped down quite a bit. Whereas this is more in the center of the eye. This is a lot closer to the top of the eye. Okay, and so what I did was line this up the best that I could with the death mask. So if you put your finger on the lower lash line of his left on our right eye, you can see it lines up really well. And the same with his right eye with the death mask of Joseph Smith. And so in the short, I just sort of show you there's that hairline outline. Well, it's also too wide. So someone was trying to tell me last summer, well, I know it's not because it's too wide. I've measured it. I've measured your foot, and they think they're an expert in photoanthropometry. In anthropometry, it's okay. They can think that. It just is a totally flawed technique. Because I could put that onto this death mask and then onto this death mask, and it just looks different. So this death mask looks a lot wider. These are lined up the best that I could get them to line up, but there could be angle differences. I might be a little bit farther to the left. It's just hard to get a perfect centered. This was photographed when the death masks were on a wall in a case, flat on the wall, so you could step back 5 feet and get a camera on the same plane that the death mask is on and get an undistorted photo. Whereas I'm trying to angle my camera different ways and trying to be far away without a ladder. It was impossible to get as far away as you can see in this one. So you can see, it just matches a little bit better. It's different. I don't know. I'll see if I do not have this lined up the best that I could. it's hard to do. I was just doing all those videos. I think I was trying to line up the jawline and it kind of got weird there. See which one is wider. So you can see the narrowing of the one that's too close of the forehead and everything, but it just comes a lot wider. And the things are just in different locations. So it just, camera distortion, angle distortion, light distortion, it's very, very hard to get things perfect. But, and then here's the hairline outline of my picture, which in the video I did make slightly smaller, and I can just roughly kind of grab this and expand it out like that. But you definitely do see this odd just boom angling down, but there's more of a curved angle in the painting. But I mean, definitely it's showing several inches lower on this picture, but also on the death mask. So let's just grab Victor Cress's. Obviously, you would think his hair should be right there. But it shows the same thing. So when my picture sketched outline onto the death mask, I don't know why it's not centered. I don't know. But there's just so much that looks so different. Things will look wider being farther away, different lens and all that. So you could see that this caught that curve, and I always saw that and noticed that anytime I was doing my analysis before I got my own photos of the death mask. And then when I got my own photos, I actually sketched the outline of the death mask itself and put it on my picture and just made it slightly enlarged. Which again, you can see camera distortion and angle of the same object changes the dimensions and width of something. So as you're trying to measure, it becomes very subjective. So, because it's just impossible to do without the person physically being there. You need to have someone physically there to measure them, right? Like forensic anthropologists want to measure the skulls in order to see what skull they think is Joseph Smith. Whereas we've already had 8 doctors now, though. It's like, well, that study that Luck Mackay brought up, I'm like, why didn't I know this? Like, it annoys me every time I find something new that I'm like, this should have been known. I should have known this 7 years ago, and that would have helped with our paper. And it was just frustrating because our paper was already done, and they just, they did edit and fix some things a little bit, but you see that this is quite good. So, but you have to keep in mind that the death mask itself has changed over time. Just take away my picture right there. I'll zoom in so that you're not distracted by what's behind it. But this is an 1800s photo of the death mask before they filed it down and put plaster on it. So you can see there's the plaster. Again, here it is without it. Before it's been filed down, you can really see his hairline is receded really far back. Really. And then there's one from the archives where it just even seems more obvious that it's just like this. Like, well, that looks like my photo. And I'm going to take away the grid. So guys, his hair is receded. And we can just show how well the duplicate oil painting was made to match. Really well. But the thing is, the eyes are very much too close together. So I can center one eye on the death mask and one eye onto my picture of the death mask, but the eyes are way too close together in both the Carter image, Library of Congress. Eyes too close together, not showing the step deformity, nose is way too long. Like, all of those issues are seen in all those photos that David Lindsley and Kim Marshall want to state is a photograph of a man. But they all show the exact same problem that cannot be explained away by camera distortion, in my opinion, at all. Like, the level of, these are major, major differences that come from artistic liberty. So you can see, like, there's the pupil of his eye, but his eye is over here. There's this pupil of his eye is over there. So I think this explains what happened and went wrong with the 3D result done by Zygote Media. I think they just made a not great choice in thinking, oh, well, Joseph had a lazy eye, so let's add that in. I think that's what made it really look kind of like, oh, a little bit. It's just not super great, but the book is still amazing, and the 3D I think is still really good. But I'm more impressed when they sketched on that death mask that Shannon Tracy has a really great thing that no one else has, a grid. The eyes, eyelashes, like, you could see the shape of his eyes so much better on this tracing on the copy of the death mask. I think that's really cool that they did that. And then they took a pen and traced that, and that's how they created the 3D. But it was like about 6 other people than Shannon Tracy that heard these men deciding which school is Joseph Smith. They all were waiting for that answer. If it was wrong and published in the book, why would Shannon do that? He didn't work in a vacuum. He didn't work alone. I don't think Shannon's a bad guy. I don't think he, according to this allegation I heard last summer, that he just twisted the words of, and that they didn't really say, but they didn't know about someone else's, work. It's just so shady. It sounded very shady to me, some things that were said. And then this last summer, so that was the summer before in 2023. So this last summer, someone was just really, I was bullied really bad. And then Shannon Tracy's being interviewed. I was just really depressed and upset. And I got in the chat and I was just like, I wasn't super happy with his interview with Ward Radio. So I've apologized about that a few times, but I just, he's going to start thinking he sees some of the stuff that I see. If having me showing my website and all this stuff, that's just going to happen because he thinks so strongly, scandal types Joseph Smith. And he sees, oh yeah, that statement by Levi Hancock. Oh, he ripped it in. And then you've got Saints Unscripted focusing in on that. Like, I feel like they've just been trying to, I don't want to put any allegations out there, but it's just not good. It's not cool what's happened. But here's that eye is lined up, and then you look at that death mask. That line right there. We could just grab a nice little dot right there and just look at that. As I select that layer or that one. Okay, let's do this. Bring this back up to 100%. Let's select layer 11. There we go. So I was just sort of analyzing something else a minute ago. Okay, gone. There we go. And just look at that. But here's the corner of eye, corner of the eye, corner of his eye, corner of the other eye. Nostril, nostril, corner of the mouth, corner of the mouth. And you just bring his picture down in opacity, you see where those dots are right there. We could even grab that outline and just go, ooh, bring this up here. There we go. Corner of the eye, you see how far away the eye, like the eyes just don't line up, but corner of the eye, boom, that's the edge of the forehead. So the edge of the forehead on the death mask is clearly not where the hairline would be. So as we look at just the study of the skulls again, so much I need to edit my website. I'm sorry, you guys. I wish it wasn't just me that worked on the website or these videos, but it just is, and I'm sorry. I don't have anyone that I have to be like, hey, let me watch this before you publish it and help you out. But there's that left eye, there's that right eye. So you can see that step deformity. But then there's that straight line up and down right there. So then you see and even look at this, and it's on a loop, so I'll just let it just keep playing. Look at that little notch right there. So let it restart. On the skull, there's shattered bone, and it's the same straight line. Okay, so the death mask was capturing. This wasn't from life, so since it's gone, and you see it on the death mask there, that must have been part of his immortal blow. You know, it's part of his death. And Willard Richards said he fell on his left side, a dead man. So I will grab that quote. But yeah, here you can see these bushy eyebrows, and you can see those there. You can see all my analyses there. So if you want to see my facial analysis, go ahead and come here. But here you see I've traced the outline there, put it there, and just reduced it slightly. And then the chin, it lands there, and it all lines up really well. But there's also this picture right here from April 1844. And you see Joseph's hair still is not this bouffant, boom, boom. It's brushed forward and barely popped up, but you can see it's receded some, especially on the side. You see how there's skin color right there, I think, and this would be his left side. So it makes me think it is the left side that he really had his hair pulled out in 1832. So as I'm looking at black top hat painting right here, I've seen the orientation where his nose is this way, like he's facing this way instead. Then this would be the left side of his head. So please, if you know the person that owns that and they're willing to just share, you know, a verified, unedited, unreversed, because they, on their own church's website and in church news, they've published photos of the death mask reversed before and not explained or given a context or a reason why. It was just, here's this person's photography of the skulls. And they probably did that to analyze a daguerreotype that they think is a reverse. You know, there's probably some reason that they flipped it, but they still published it reversed. You know? And so Gowan Weaver thought with my picture, since it's such low quality, the one that's evidence that J.S. Vivens didn't take that photo. But he said it would be in the correct perspective if it was a daguerreotype, taken of a daguerreotype, and then photographed onto a CDV. That would explain everything, is what he verbally said to me. So I'm not misquoting him, and he hasn't contacted me angry or anything. So, he just knew a lot and just said all the right things. He just knew so much. So I listen to other people. I do talk to other people, so the comments are back on and everything. But yeah, it's just a lot more in depth about the skulls and talking about the step deformity, which you can only see in the duplicate oil painting. You don't see in the authentic one at all. You don't explain that away with camera distortion. With David Lindsley, he's like, oh, well, there's a little bit of camera distortion. Yes, there is, because they photographed at different angles, different distances. The forward-facing painting, touched it up with India ink, and then you get Library of Congress picture where it looks a lot more narrow. Forward-facing painting is already too narrow, and it got more narrow. So that's one of the worst ones. And then Carter's image, the eyes are a little bit farther apart in his photo. Looks a little bit more widened somehow. But there are statements people thought they saw the daguerreotype. I think that's possible, and I do think my picture was the daguerreotype. So I do wonder. Some people, but I did see it, and he did look a lot older. And forehead a lot more broad than is previously depicted in some images of him, and looked a lot more mature, looked a lot older. I don't know if I get that from the Library of Congress picture, though. So I don't know about those statements, but I still like that statement. And I finally read the whole thing. I'm like, oh, they're talking about Carter's image? That he's going to touch up with India ink? I don't know. But Judson III, for sure, in 1879, it was published in his own newspaper saying he was taking photos of the painting and selling that. He was not selling like the Library of Congress picture. He just had touched that up, sent that there. So I don't agree with David Lindsley or Kim Marshall. Again, I don't hate them. I don't mean to hurt them, but they're publicly sharing all this stuff over and over and being seen as experts, and Tegan and Machi are totally, ignored. But I guess if Curtis Weaver says it's so, it just is. I don't. But I think he's been misleading about all these other studies as he referenced them in his 2009 paper. I still really, really don't agree that he did that, because that affected me and my research, and I wasn't happy about it. I'm still not happy about that, because it's just, that's what you find. That's what everyone keeps sending out and just saying, look at what he did. He's so amazing. He's done all this stuff. And, he's just other people kept putting him into my inbox or bringing him to me physically and just like, talk to him. I'm like, you don't know who I'm working with. And that's what I said in person. I'm working with some really great people that know what they're talking about. Why are you being condescending and being like, what do you think I'm going to do to help you? I'm like, I didn't even know you were in the building. I didn't ask to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm here to see what happened to the blacktop hat painting. And this guy brings you over, and then you can't answer my question. I'm just going to go read these letters that I've been wanting to read for 3 years. That's why I'm here, not to see you. And that sounds very mean, but I wasn't. I wasn't there to see Curtis Weaver. That's not usually why people go to the church history library, but then I'm realizing that he's very likely. I realized that in 2019. Well, I initially thought it was maybe Mark Staker. I think at one point I thought it was maybe the Saints Project guy, whatever his name is, the guy with curly hair, that worked on that, and I guess is the editor-in-chief of BYU Studies. I just didn't know who this anonymous person was from 7 years ago, October 2017. And it was only 3 months later that I was in emails with Curtis, and he was saying the same things that person said. So, of course, I thought that was the same person then in 2018. And then got a 3-year break there, I think. But he's just, anytime there's communication or anything happens, like, he's being featured in 2018. And then in 2019, after I talked to the Smith family, he's being featured again in church news. You know, obviously people think that he's this great historian and knows so much and understands the human anatomy so well, but he doesn't. He used photoanthropometry and tried to use it again, and just used a very much more narrowed photo of the death mask to try to say that the forehead and the bones didn't match. But you should see how many forensic anthropologists I've talked to that will not analyze a photo of the skull because of photoanthropometry. They're all like, oh, no, we have to physically handle it. You know, they will not. And so therefore they're not going to take a photo of the skull and superimpose it and think that, bam, it should perfectly match. And if it doesn't perfectly match, it's not him. Things get distorted and messed up. So they won't. People that actually know what they're doing, forensic anthropologists, specialize in facial identity, identifying people, working with FBI. And they don't want to put the wrong person in jail. And they want to find the killer. And they want to find the guy. I mean, that's how they found the guy that did the bombing in 2013. Was using those techniques. Because they had surveillance cameras. That's how he found him. So it does great things. It's an important job. But it's very important to them to use the right techniques. So photoanthropometry, thrown out. Because it's just not right. And they're like, oh, in England, they started really pushing that. But no, we got to put a stop to this. And here's our whole website that I talked about 2 summers ago that I'd found. You know, they try to all be consistent and see what the new studies are. What's the best technique? Let's use this to help law enforcement, to help save lives, help people be allowed to own a business and keep their stuff there and not get it stolen and give the consequences to a robbery. You know, that's why that field exists. Curtis isn't a part of the field. DJ Bodden is not a part of the field. They aren't. Okay, and they've been 2 very angry men hurling all these accusations instead of just, actually, it couldn't quote those women. It couldn't quote Van de Graaff or Niles Harrod. I didn't know any of them. I was really frustrated that I didn't know about it. I didn't know about those 2 women's statements, these bioarchaeologists, until this year. I started researching in 2017. I've been working with Tegan Lucas and Machi Hannenberg since 2019. And Deborah Hatfield didn't know for 5 more years, 5 years, that 2 bioarchaeologists really found where they drilled into his bone on his leg. And therefore they're saying, oh yeah, those are the bones lined up with the skull that has most of the facial bones. That's got to be Joseph. And all these, it's a whole lot more. But Curtis is like, well, they're not being as thorough as me because they're not using photoanthropometry. I'm like, I don't understand. I basically was using that without knowing that, according to Tegan, when she talked to me in 2020. But I understood about camera distortion, though, because I've done photography. And I've seen my own face look totally different with like a cell phone camera. And I've used a nicer camera and already known and explained to people, oh, don't get all depressed with your selfies with your cell phone, because man, that it doesn't make people look good. I'm not a beauty queen, I know that, but I'm just getting really passionate in this video, and I keep trying to make a shorter video, and it's really hard. It's hard for me to make that short, and making a bunch of shorts are hard to do. And every detail is important to me, you guys. It just is. So yeah, I'll just end the video because my brain is telling me to stop. I'm tired. I've had a really hard time lately. So, and I've been sick. And yeah, so that's that.